What would you do if your son told you he wished you were dead, took half your wealth and spent it all on prostitutes and parties? Would you take him back? Would you throw a party for him? Would you run toward him with open arms? Jesus told a story about a father who did exactly that. And it's one of the most scandalous, uncomfortable, beautiful stories ever told. Because here's what most people miss. This isn't really a story about a rebellious son who came home. It's a story about two sons, both lost in completely different ways. One lost in a distant country, the other lost standing right next to his father. And it's a story about a father whose love is so reckless, so extravagant, so contrary to everything that culture said was proper, that it offended the religious people who heard it. This is the story we call the Prodigal Son. But the real prodigal, the real recklessly extravagant one, isn't the son, it's the father. And what he reveals about the heart of God will either draw you in or make you deeply uncomfortable. Maybe both. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss a story like this. Now let's dive in. Before we get into the story, you need to understand why Jesus told it. The Pharisees and religious leaders are furious with Jesus, not because he's claiming to be the Messiah, not because of his miracles, but because of who he's eating with: tax collectors and sinners. In first-century Jewish culture, eating with someone wasn't casual, it was covenant. It meant you accepted them, endorsed them, considered them worthy of your table. And Jesus is reclining at dinner with the worst people in society. The traders who collected Roman taxes, the prostitutes, the drunkards, the morally compromised. The Pharisees mutter, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." It's an accusation. You're supposed to separate from sinners, not break bread with them. Jesus hears them, and instead of defending himself, he tells three stories about things that are lost and then found. A lost sheep, a lost coin, and finally, this one. Two sons, one father, both lost, both loved. This is Jesus explaining his entire ministry in one story. And it starts with a son who does the unthinkable. The younger son comes to his father with a request. "Father, give me my share of the estate." To modern ears, that might sound reasonable. But in that culture, at that time, this request was devastating. Inheritance was distributed when the father died, not before. Asking for it early was essentially saying, "I wish you were dead, you're in my way. Give me what's mine now." It was public humiliation, personal rejection. The father could have refused, should have refused, could have disowned him on the spot. Instead, he divides his property between his two sons. The younger son takes his share, converts it to cash, and leaves, not to the next town, to a distant country, as far away as possible. And there, the text says with brutal efficiency, he squandered his wealth in wild living. Prostitutes, parties, reckless indulgence, every appetite fed, money spent as fast as it came, but the money runs out. It always does. And when it's gone, so are the friends, so are the parties. Everyone evaporates the moment he can't pay. Then a severe famine hits, food becomes scarce, and the young man who once had everything finds himself with nothing. He takes the only job he can find, feeding pigs. For a Jewish young man, this is absolute bottom. Pigs are unclean animals. Working with them is degrading beyond words. And he's so hungry, he looks at the pods he's feeding the pigs and thinks, "I wish I could eat that." The text says, no one gave him anything. In that pig pen, smelling like filth, stomach empty, the young man has a moment of clarity. How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving? I will go back and say, "Father, I have sinned. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants." He's not expecting to be a son again. That bridge is burned. But maybe his father will let him work as a servant. Not as family, just hired help, a meal, a place to sleep. It's better than pigs. So he gets up and starts the long walk home. Back home, the father has been waiting. Every day since his son left, he's been looking down that road, watching, hoping. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. The son is still distant, still approaching, and the father sees him, which means the father was watching, waiting, looking for him, standing at the edge of the property every day, hoping this would be the day. When he sees that ragged figure in the distance, the father knows. He recognizes his son even from far away. And what happens next is scandalous. He was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. He ran. In that culture, dignified men did not run. Running was undignified, childish. It meant hiking up your robes, exposing your legs, looking foolish. But this father doesn't care. He doesn't wait for the apology, doesn't send servants to check if the boy is truly repentant. He runs, closes the distance himself, and when he reaches his son, this son who humiliated him, who squandered his wealth, he throws his arms around him and kisses him. The son starts his speech. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy." The father interrupts him, doesn't even let him finish. Instead, he turns to his servants. "Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him." The best robe, not a servant's garment. The robe for honored guests, for sons. Put a ring on his finger, a signet ring, the symbol of authority. The father is restoring his identity, saying, "You're not a servant, you're my son." And sandals on his feet. Servants went barefoot. Sons wore sandals. Another restoration of status. "Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The fattened calf, the one they'd been saving for a major celebration. Killing it meant feeding the whole village. This was a public party. Music starts. Dancing begins. Joy erupts. The son who left in disgrace has returned in honor. Not because he earned it, not because he groveled enough, but because the father decided to run. But there's another son, and his reaction reveals something just as broken. The older son is out working in the field. As he approaches the house, he hears music, dancing, celebration. He calls a servant over. "What's going on?" "Your brother has come home, and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound." The older son's face goes dark. He refuses to go in. The father comes out, pleading with him. "Please come in." But the older son explodes. "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. Every word is a dagger. I've been slaving for you." He sees his relationship with his father as slavery, as obligation. "I never disobeyed." His obedience wasn't love. It was compliance, duty. "You never gave me anything." He's been keeping score, building resentment. "This son of yours, not my brother." He won't even claim the relationship. The older son has been physically present but emotionally absent. He's been in the house but not in the father's heart, doing all the right things for all the wrong reasons. And now when grace is poured out on someone who doesn't deserve it, he can't handle it. The father's response is breathtaking. "My son, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. You are always with me." The father hasn't been distant. The older son had access to everything, he just never asked, never celebrated, never experienced joy. "Everything I have is yours." The inheritance, the relationship, the love. It was already his. He just needed to receive it. "This brother of yours," the father gently corrects. This is your brother who came home. And Jesus leaves the story hanging. We never find out if the older brother goes in, if he joins the party, if he reconciles. The story just stops. Because Jesus is telling this to the Pharisees, the older brothers, the ones who resent sinners getting grace, the ones standing outside the party. And Jesus is asking, will you come in? Here's what this story reveals about God. He runs towards sinners, not away, not cautiously. He runs recklessly, extravagantly. The younger son represents obvious sinners, the ones who know they've failed, who come home expecting nothing and receive everything. The older son represents the religious, the ones who've done everything right on the outside but whose hearts are cold, who serve out of obligation instead of love. And both sons are lost. Both need the father. The scandal isn't that the younger son came home. It's that the father ran, that he gave the robe and the ring without a probation period. Without conditions. The father just loved. Extravagantly, recklessly, prodigally. That word prodigal means wastefully extravagant, spending without restraint. The father is the prodigal one, wastefully extravagant in his love. And that's exactly what God is like. Not a judge waiting for you to get your act together. Not a parent withholding affection until you earn it, but a father who runs, who sees you from far off, who doesn't wait for your apology, who throws his arms around you while you still smell like pigs, who clothes you in honor you don't deserve. Maybe you're the younger son. You've hit bottom. You think there's no way back. Come home. The father is watching, ready to run. Maybe you're the older son, doing everything right, following the rules, but your heart is cold, resentful. Come inside. Everything the Father has is already yours. Stop earning. Start receiving. Because the Father's love isn't based on what you've done. It's based on who He is. And He's been watching the road, waiting for you.